let's jump right in. Today, we're going way back in time to look at a guy whose name literally echoes through history. We're talking about a leader so incredibly impactful, he wasn't just loved by his own people, he was actually deeply respected by his absolute fiercest rivals. Like, how often does that happen? So grab a seat, because we are unpacking the incredible life and the brilliant strategies of Sultan Salahuddin Ayyubi in today's Explainer.
Now, you might be wondering, who exactly is the Sultan who freed Jerusalem? That's the big hook here, guys. We're looking at a commander who pulled off the impossible. He liberated one of the most hotly contested cities on the entire planet. But honestly, what's so fascinating isn't just that he won the battles, it's how he won them. He totally flipped the script on what a medieval conqueror looked like, earning massive respect from the very people he was fighting against.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1. Early Life and Beginnings. So we're starting off in the year 1137. He was born in Tikrit, which is in modern-day Iraq, to a Kurdish family. And while most of us know him as Saladin, his actual given name was Salahuddin Yusuf ibn Ayyub. You know, it's crazy to think he wasn't born into royalty. He wasn't bred to lead massive armies. He was just a young kid growing up in a super volatile, really fractured 12th century Middle East.
And here is where it gets super interesting. Looking at his path, you see a wild paradox. Growing up, this guy was totally focused on education and religion. He was way more into hitting the books than picking up a sword. But fate? Well, fate had other plans. The crazy political climate of his time literally transformed this quiet, religious scholar into the Islamic world's most legendary military commander. It's like a movie script, honestly. Just goes to show you never really know what history has in store for you.
Moving right along to Part 2, his political rise in Egypt.
Let's trace out his timeline to see how his story builds. We've got his birth in 1137, right? But the real game changer happens smack in the middle there, 1171. This is the massive turning point where he officially ends the Fatimid rule and sets up a unified Sunni government in Egypt. Literally overnight, he shifts the entire balance of power in the region. And from there, things just accelerate straight toward 1187, a year that absolutely changed the world, before his story wraps up with his death in 1193.
Just look at the sheer scale of what he accomplished here. Once he locked down Egypt in 1171, he did not hit the brakes, not even close. He started systematically stitching together Egypt, Syria, and all these surrounding, super divided regions under one single banner. I mean, just imagine the sheer diplomatic and military brainpower it took to unite territories that had been fractured for ages.
So what was the driving force behind all of this? Well, it definitely wasn't just some blind power grab. His ultimate goal was the unification of a totally fractured Muslim world. Remember, at this time, Crusader forces were holding Jerusalem and a bunch of other key areas, and the local folks were incredibly divided. Driven by a really deep sense of justice and courage, this was his moral crusade. He wanted to bring his people together, and that is exactly why he became such an absolute hero to the masses.
All right, which brings us to Part 3, the Battle of Hattin and the conquest of Jerusalem. This is the climax of our story.
Okay, the year is 1187, and this is the defining moment. At the Battle of Hattin, Saladin's forces clash head-on with the Crusader armies. And guys, this wasn't just a narrow win. The Crusaders suffered an absolutely crushing, catastrophic defeat. This one battle literally broke their military stronghold in the region. Just like that, the road to Jerusalem was completely wide open.
Now, what's really wild about this next part is the sheer scale of the achievement. 88. That is how many years Jerusalem had been under Crusader control. Almost 9 decades. We're talking multiple generations of people who lived and died without ever seeing the city in Muslim hands. But then, in October of 1187, thanks to that massive win at Hattin, Jerusalem finally surrendered to Saladin.
And this right here is probably the most crucial takeaway from the whole story. Back in medieval times, if a city resisted and then fell, a brutal massacre was basically standard operating procedure. It was just what you did. But Saladin, no way. There was zero massacre. Instead, he actually granted peace, safety, and protection to the people of Jerusalem. He let them leave safely. It's this mind-blowing level of restraint and humanity that made even his absolute worst enemies in Europe write about how honorable and just he was.
Let's move into our final chapter, Part 4, Saladin's Legacy.
So, the fall of Jerusalem obviously sent massive shockwaves straight through Europe, and it instantly kicked off the Third Crusade. And this gives us one of the most epic rivalries in history. Salahuddin on one side, and England's famous King Richard the Lionheart on the other. But you know what's so cool about this? It wasn't just about the fighting. Despite being bitter rivals trying to control the Holy Land, these two guys actually had a ton of mutual respect. They constantly praised each other's bravery, chivalry, and military genius. It's truly one for the history books.
Eventually, the man who built an empire and took back Jerusalem passed away in 1193. And when he died, he left behind practically nothing. No giant vaults of gold, no hidden riches. History actually tells us he gave so much away to his people, to his troops, and to the poor that he didn't even leave enough cash behind to comfortably pay for his own funeral. I mean, just think about the absolute lack of personal greed that takes. It's incredibly profound when you really sit with it.
When we boil it all down, we're looking at a guy who truly set an eternal standard. He showed the world that real leadership absolutely has to be tied to justice. He proved that bravery isn't just about swinging a sword, it's about having the power to destroy and choosing to show mercy instead. Those are the core virtues that absolutely define his legacy, and it's something we can definitely still learn from today.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. When you look at his brilliant strategies, how he united all those fractured lands, and his unbelievable humanity, is Salahuddin Ayyubi history's greatest military commander? If you think so, drop down into the comments right now and type Jerusalem's hero, Salahuddin Ayyubi. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep asking questions.